And if we were to just, um, well, I am just meeting you, but if I hadn't have read anything about you, how would you describe yourself and kind of your mission on the planet today?
Well, if I was to describe myself, I would say I'm definitely very bold, but also mixed with like the personality of a cat.
Cats can be bold.
um, and
Tell us more, please. Tell us more.
well, I mean, like I'm very I can be to myself, but I can also be equally as social. You know, like the cat, they like have very strong aspects. I don't know why we're diving into animals, but just
Well,
like they can
there's a lot
be.
of animal spirit energy in this place, so it doesn't surprise me.
But you know what I mean? Like they can be
Mhm.
very equally quiet, but then they'll like just come out of nowhere and do like some really silly shit. Um,
Like climb the wall
yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah. And
climb your
as
leg.
far as my mission, I just want to help women wake up to who they are on a soul level. And whether that's healing their relationship to their body, their emotions, their mindset, healing their relationship to money, whatever it is, I just really want to help women connect with their truth, their
Mm,
which is their most powerful essence, you know.
wow. That's yeah, that is yeah. And I believe that's everyone's most powerful
Mhm.
essence. And that was really why John and I started this, is to hold each other accountable, to bring that out for each other, and to continue to stay honest and hold space for men to be able to speak their truth. Because we see how, like, that John and I are like these unicorns. Like, no wonder we have all these female friends, because we're like the only dudes around that, like, really, we're like, here's our heart. But now we're working on, like, stepping into the masculine energy too and finding the balance, and that women do that as well. And it's not really about gender, but that to have a purpose, that you really connect with, that is so needed. And to have powerful women like you in the world is so needed. And I love the cat energy, because I believe so much of healing and your truth is embracing, your inner child and your playful side, as well as the quiet times. And adults are like afraid to have fun. So the
Mhm.
fact that you're able, you're not afraid to talk about money or sex or your body or whatever, we struggle with. And women definitely, being married to a woman, I see every day how much pressure society puts on women,
Mhm.
especially, and all these constructs that are made up that we feel like we have to fit into, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it just goes on and on. Like, as soon as a woman is very bold in herself, then society or other people will say, you're being too much. You
Mm,
know, so it's like no matter what, somebody's going to say something. So you might as well just let it rip and be whatever the fuck you want.
yes.
I
So
love
Natalie just froze on Instagram. Could you just say that one more time?
Oh, I was just saying how being a woman and maybe with a man too, I have no idea what that's like, but as soon as you are fully embodying yourself and speaking your truth and standing in your power, society or somebody else will have something to say about that, you know, telling you that you're being too much. So you might as well just let it rip and do whatever the fuck you want because you can't make everybody happy.
I want to share something that uh, what you said. Whenever a woman is showing up, it's like, oh, she's being too much, and I feel like for the masculine, a lot of times we get the criticism of you're not enough.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
like this because men they have to be competitive and they always have to produce and create and like hunter gatherer. Oh, not enough. So it's a weird dynamic how society will judge or actually compare like too much to what and like not enough compared to what and to who. So yeah, it's all about breaking down those paradigms of comparison, because comparison is the thief of joy. And when can we just really be ourselves?
Exactly. I
Fully.
love that so much because growing up, I actually saw that dynamic in my house, just like with my dad being such a strong provider, but then like um just like the not enoughness dynamic. Like I've never ever thought of it like that. I've only seen things from a woman's perspective.
And I think maybe the just
Mm.
the energy of the feminine is to receive. So whenever, I mean, whenever it's dominant, right, is feminine energy, yin energy is like the receptive energy. So when you're like providing or giving more than the baseline, then it's like, whoa, too much.
Mm.
And then for a man, if we're supposed to be like this hunter, gatherer, provider, and if we are trying to receive, then, oh, you're not enough, or you're being too passive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where's that balance where we can actually live in harmony? So
I love that.
yeah,
Also, yeah, the shadow aspect of the feminine is that needy energy and that controlling energy. So it makes sense, like, what you're saying.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I love this. Yes. There's so many things that come up too. So let me ask you this as well. How so we've got that like men deal with not enough and that we're talking in great generalizations, right? And then a lot of women deal with you're too much, which my wife actually has heard too. And she's heard those words from my mouth. So I own that. We talk about it, you know. And I've called myself out on it because we've had this conversation because I say, listen, I want you to be as like wild and too much is like let's take that and run, like go for it. I really try to empower her because that's
Mhm.
something that I realized I called myself out. I was just afraid of how powerful she is, and it scares me sometimes, and I don't know what I can count on, and that's part of the excitement of of feminine energy, though. And so if you can, instead of like trying to like fight it and control it, get on the wave and go with it, it's so much more incredible that you can support it, and we get to, and I have that too. I can be totally wild and out of control, and that scares my
You?
wife as well. So there's like there's things that I think men get also struggle with or afraid to fully express themselves too. At least conscious men. There's
Mhm.
like this because we don't want to take up too much space or we don't want to cause harm or we
Mhm.
don't know how to do that safely. This is something I've heard from other men I've spoken to.
Think
Um,
conscious men, you mean?
yeah.
I definitely just feel like in the conscious community, like speaking your truth and like letting it rip, like you have to like put like a conscious spiritual filter over it, whether you're a man or a woman, or it
Hmm.
can become a whole other facade or a whole other mask in itself,
Yeah.
or a not enoughness story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just in a church service yesterday because my father was an Episcopal minister, but he was really, even though he was Southern, he was super self-expressed and super open-minded and hilarious.
Mhm.
And our church growing up it's Episcopalian, attracted all these super eccentric people. And even before the services outdoors, like people were having like a hoedown, like a picnic, and everyone's bringing their own chairs, and the like rector's trying to like control everyone. And then
Hold on.
suddenly, like everyone stops and they get quiet. And we're like, we believe in one God, da, da, da. And it's like suddenly all the soul is taken out of the service. And I had this moment where I was sad and grieving, and I actually felt like uncomfortable grieving out loud because I was around this, like I was in this controlled environment. So I was saying we even have these constructs where we feel like we can't let ourselves fully express or fully be angry or like there's a lot of stuff around permission for women to be allowed to be angry.
Absolutely. I mean, in the spiritual community, there's so much toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing that it really numbs out like the full human experience. So I just love whenever people can bring their authenticity, even if it necessarily isn't spiritual or positive or in alignment or whatever.
So what do you think men could do to fully support women in this conversation of too much?
I would say just listening without trying to fix, which is, a big one. And just holding the space for the woman to be whatever is real for her. I think speaking to like embodiment, embodiment is just really like being in touch with and even expressing whatever is real for you. And so if the masculine can, just allow the woman to be whatever she is in that moment without telling her how things should be, or she should just be grateful or whatever. just literally just like this open energy and hold her through whatever she's going through. I think that is the most powerful thing you can do for a woman and really see her. Mm-hmm.
All the men at home, please take notes.
Another
That's the
reminder.
only advice I'll give you guys is to listen.
Yeah.
And to listen and listen and just listen.
And I got a great. I'm practicing pausing after people speak for this very purpose.
You're good.
And I got this great suggestion for men from a woman. It said, "What if you don't know how to be? Let's make it masculine and feminine, right? Let's take gender out. If you don't know how to be when there's a feminine energy sharing a lot of that energy with you, if you don't know what to do with it, consider that you can ask. Like you could say, how would you like to be listened to right now? Are you needing to just vent or would you like feedback? So that you can like for the fixer brain that wants to take over that masculine thing can actually like be like, oh, I can actually release that and just hold space.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Sometimes you may not know, right? You're like, I don't fucking know. I just see you talk, right?
It's
Yeah. My
Go ahead.
my best friend is a relationship psychologist, and she says like the biggest thing she tells her clients to ask is like, what do you need right now? Like that simple. And a lot of times like women, well, it depends on your like love language, but a lot of times women just want to be held and listened to. And like, like having the focus on them, you know what I mean? As opposed to like listening like this, or halfway listening, just like true presence and being held and seen. And yeah, I think that's really beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
think the unevolved masculine listens to fix, because by fixing we get like an ego reward, and it's like, ooh, I just rescued her by fixing something. So that
It's also a way to be like, it gives us purpose. If you don't feel like you have any, you're like, I don't know what to do. Maybe I can just fix this and make it go away too. There's that energy as well sometimes.
Yeah, and there's also the one that like doesn't respond. That I have definitely dated guys in my past that like can't even begin to hold the space. So it's more like the avoidant type. Mm-hmm.
My wife actually has part of the avoidant too, and so we talk about that. I'm actually more of the feminine energy sometimes in the relationship, in that like I just want to be, held and heard.
Yeah.
And I've told her that she has different. She developed different sense, and we trigger each other sometimes. But that's where the work is. Like that's where we get to work on it, because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like even in our conversation, we can come to new things, but we have to practice it. And so I think it's so important, because anyone can be avoidant, but typically like men really are that, because there are not outlets or tools taught or enough examples shown in society for how to communicate your feelings. And it's so interesting that because I relate with a more feminine energy, I actually I've dated a lot of more masculine energy women who I've like ended up trying to have the same conversation with, like, if you could just tell me how you're feeling,
Wow.
But at the same time, I realized there were feelings I had a hard time holding space for, and that was anger. And so through that process, I've learned, and we talked about this, I think last week actually, on anger, that I had that anger meant something's not wrong, not okay, not safe. And so I had a very hard time holding space for my partners when they were angry. And so that's something that I'm still working on to this day. But I finally realized it after like 30 something years. It was nice because I was like, okay, now we can work on it. Now we can talk about it. So that's why I even ask, like, when the inside of anger, when there's that space, how can I think it's the same thing. I was going to say, how can the masculine hold space for that and the feminine energy, that fire?
Yeah, I think definitely not stepping away and running away, especially if it's holy anger and not like, I don't want to say like, you know what I mean by holy anger, like it's rightful, like it's truthful, not coming from a place of like being controlling or like overly one-sided. But yeah, just like holding space for it and just allowing your person to be heard regardless if they're male or female. Yeah.
And I've heard this so much. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Natalie, because again and again, I've heard from. I listened to some podcasts of male coaches, but also psychologists. And I've been in therapy since I was a kid. It's like my family. That's like one big way they did. They're like all in therapy, so I've always been fascinated by it. And there's this, but from everyone, the main thing I keep hearing is we all just need to be seen, held, and heard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, or maybe it's seen, heard, and accepted, but either way it's the same thing in different love languages, right? And so most of us, if any of us are feeling needy or pissed off because um, we feel these needs, it's considered that our needs aren't being met. So a lot of men who become needy are because they don't know how to meet their own needs, and so they look for a woman to fill that. And I think vice versa too, right? In our society, and this is like the old patriarchal thing, is that like, a woman needed a man, um, and and then so these men felt like they needed to carry the weight. So it's still this old stuff that's not even true that we're all dealing with today, and we just, want to like. It's so great that this. Sorry, something happened. This has all changed, and we get to like have this conversation with you now.
I want to go to a comment that Cock Ruth has. She says, I have a problem whenever there's anger from someone. I immediately apologize, whether it is my fault or not. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this?
I mean, for me, my mind immediately goes to seeing that from like a trauma lens. Like a lot of times when people have like especially childhood trauma, because the child will interpret the parents' anger or even abuse as it's their fault. So then that becomes like a repetitive reaction in the brain that like everything's my fault. So that's where my brain goes on that one. Yeah.
And I've seen that scenario in my own life where there's anger and I tend to want to like try to fix it by apologizing. And I noticed that there's possibly a like drama triangle involved where there's like a victim, a villain, and a rescuer. And then I place myself, well, if I can apologize for something, then I'm actually going to rescue or fix the problem. So that this person that's angry can feel seen or heard. And so yeah, that's how I see it. There's um, and oftentimes a lot of times this anger, and I think Natalie touched on it, was it can be a controlling anger or manipulative anger that the person wants to get a rise out of. So it's really up to us to be aware of like, where is this anger coming from, and did I cause this anger, and am I uh, the one to apologize in this scenario? And if you are, cool, but if you're not, just be aware of that and hold space for that person to have their tantrum, so to speak, and not be a back-to-back fight.
Totally. We're all just like children projecting our
Totally.
childhood and parental patterns onto each other.
100%. And most relationships, we reattract to that pattern over and over and wonder why, like, we can't find someone or we can't make it work because we keep looking outward for the answers to fulfill that void or that drama patterning. And it's like, it's weird that we have to get into psychology to even reparent ourselves because I feel like everyone has to be, or like we're all screwed, you know? Like,
Totally.
how do people deal that don't have the awareness? You know, I don't
Drinking.
like, yeah, but then that makes it so much worse. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an alcoholic in recovery. I see how much alcohol, like, just, you know, everything, substance, it just like exacerbates everything. It just
Mhm.
like becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like 100%. So when you do that self-sabotage, right, how do you deal with it? Then you become that victim again. And I love that Ruth came on. So Ruth is from Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I am now. I, you know, have lived in New York, but I'm here with my family doing some healing, and she rescues dogs. She works with veterans to help connect them with animals to heal. So she does incredible work. We're going to be talking soon. And she even said she was a foster kid and was told that it was her fault and their family didn't even want her.
Wow.
Um, and so that's why she's knows to apologize, right? Like we
Mhm.
learn how to survive that way. Even my
Totally.
mom, I think like my mom's here, like we hug each other every morning first thing. Like we were such a loving relationship, but still she apparently she told me like didn't kind of resented me the first 2 years I was born and really didn't want to like have another kid and probably didn't give me the love I needed and I actually like it makes sense now. Like I feel that, and that was something so simple that I like am dealing with as an adult, like some traumatic reaction. So I thought I wasn't things weren't going to be safe, you know. And so there's, but
Totally.
I get to talk to her about it. So if your parents are alive or not, one of the things I encourage you to do if you're home is to have conversations with them about these things and ask like what it was like for them growing up. And if they're not alive, that you can still talk to them and ask them and reflect on that. Um, So I have a question for you, Natalie.
Okay.
So, what would you say are some healthy ways, like for women who come to you that have all this anger, and what do you tell them? Like, what are some of the healthy ways for them to hold space and express that and deal with that? Like, what are some of the things you do as a coach or a healer?
So I love Kundalini yoga because it's a lot of like movement, like with your arms, and you're syncing your breath with your movements. And for me, that has been a way that has helped me release so much anger. Like I used to be a very angry person, and I also, of course, have dealt with my childhood trauma and relationship trauma, and all kinds of stuff. And I just felt like a darker soul in some ways. And, living in New
Mm,
York
yeah, I can
really,
relate.
really added some darkness in there
Yeah.
as well. But whenever I started practicing Kundalini, I realized I was like really becoming who.
Do we lose Natalie for a second?
Instagram. Oh, wait, there you go.
There
Okay,
you go.
yeah. So you're saying through Kundalini.
Okay.
You're good. You're
Where did y'all
back.
lose me?
Well, the Kundalini had really been a powerful expression for you.
Yeah, and so then I started testing it on my clients, and the same thing. Like my clients were women that have never practiced Kundalini before, um, that were harboring a lot of anger, and
Mm.
even just after the first session, they were having breakthroughs and just coming out the other side lighter. So it's really
Hell yeah.
beautiful to witness.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And if you all don't know what that is, I mean, a lot of it's moving your body up and down, repetitive movements So using your breath and sounds at the same time.
Mm.
So like 90% of the work I try to do with people anyway is just to get in their body and make noise. And
Yeah.
any of that is like that's all like that energy. It's all Kundalini. So if you don't have access to Kundalini, what else would you say? If people
Um,
are like, "Oh, I'm not gonna go," like we're not
well,
gonna go jump into Kundalini class, like,
there's YouTube videos, but I will say just doing some breath work, breath of fire, which
mm,
is just an equal inhale and exhale out of the nose, breathing from the stomach, not your
yeah.
chest.
I do it every morning in the shower. I go from hot
Yeah,
water to cold water, and then I do that in the cold water for like 30 seconds.
amazing.
It's
And
my
that,
shock, and that's helped me with anxiety and exposure therapy and stress relief. And
beautiful. Yeah, another thing I love is just like working out with a purpose. So
mm,
I will just like go on a run or hit the elliptical and just like visualize tension, anxiety, anger, even illness, just like leaving my
mm,
body with every single breath. And I
hell
swear,
yeah.
yeah, it really fucking works. And to me, that's like breath work, but more of a workout.
Hell yeah, definitely. Well, that's great too because and I was actually just telling a friend that today because he was like struggling and I said you got to get your heart rate up. I run because it actually kicks in the fight or flight and you actually if you're feeling that and you're feeling that anxious energy and you're wanting to run or fight, that actually running or actually moving your body with some intensity, getting your heart rate up can help move that through you and then it gives you this great serotonin too and oxygen and stuff, so it's like great science, you can really just
Absolutely.
move a muscle and change your mind.
I
Well,
really,
yeah.
I really just believe in the power of like mindset and
Mm,
movement, whatever, for physical health as well. Because um, there's this woman that I met that has similar chronic illnesses as I do, but she does zero mindset and zero movement, which I got her on like a protocol. So now she's doing it. But and she was like hospitalized and like way worse off than I was. And we're around the same age and everything.
mm,
And so I just truly believe in like sweating and getting your heart rate up. Just
yeah,
it's so simple and
yeah,
just keeping your mindset, well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ruth also said on here to just go out to a gorge and yell, and that is that's why we talked about anger last week. We had an exercise in my men's group, the Lions Den, to go to just, 60-second challenge to yell and scream and punch a soft inanimate object. And like 90% of the men didn't do it because they felt like there wasn't a safe space to even yell for 60 seconds, and that's like, so one thing I realized that I didn't think about is like your car is an amazing sound booth, soundproof space, and you can freak out in it and pretty safely. Um, and you can yell, and that's like it's really or a pillow,
Uh-huh.
over your face. So if you need not to disturb people, but you need to let it out, it's so important to let it out because if you don't let it out, I'm glad you're talking about all this physical stuff. I think it comes out some other way, right?
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
like the papa mole thing. Like if you don't release it, it's just gonna cut. And I think a lot of disease and
Anger held
chronic
is depression.
illness.
It turns into depression. And
Mhm.
so Ryan Atlas at home there has a question.
Yeah.
Says, what if the anger is directed at you as a form of attack or something like that?
Mm.
Should you hold space for that? Sit and listen to it?
I
Um,
that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like I didn't want to use like the word abusive, but if it is coming from like a nasty place or like an attack or like one-sidedness, um, I think you always you can exercise your power of choice,
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
I mean, if
usually,
it's
when,
causing you harm,
yeah,
then that's usually not a safe space for a conversation. So, like one thing my wife and I do if we both feel heated, and she's really awesome about this too, because um, I will be more likely to like I'll punch a pillow or my bed or something. Like I'll go in a separate room, release physically, but she'll release like verbally. And so
Mhm.
one of the things she'll say is like, let's pause and separate before I say something that both of us are going to regret.
Mhm.
And so, like, before it gets to that moment, just to try to separate. But that
Absolutely.
you can separate yourself, and as long as your partner knows, you're going to come back to continue the conversation. So you can say, this isn't healthy or feel safe for me. I'm going to leave, but I will be back to
Yeah.
communicate, and they may not like it, but you're being responsible for yourself,
Yeah,
and for that.
definitely.
So
I love just one more thing for releasing is
Yeah,
I
please.
I do some like really crazy shit in my apartment. And I make my clients do it too, but I'll like literally just like shake it out
Hmm.
and like grunt and like I really sound crazy.
No, that
And
sounds really
but like
healthy
I
because
like
animals do
literally,
this.
yeah, it is the like when they get attacked by a larger animal, they go off and like shake it off and
shake
move.
it off.
And that came to me like in a plant medicine journey, and I've just used it ever since. And then another thing is ecstatic dance. I mean,
Hmm.
I do some
Hell
like
yeah.
weird shit in my apartment. I just like I literally feel like I have to like get everything out of me. And I think movement for me with breath, whatever that looks like, is like the best way.
Mm, I love,
Yeah.
love, love that. I used to go to a five rhythms dance. This is like ecstatic dance on Friday mornings in a church in New York in
Yes,
the
I've
East
heard.
Village St. Mark's space, and the sun is like beaming through these stained glass windows, and everyone's
Ooh.
just like letting it rip.
New
And
York is the place you gotta let it rip. I used to go to
you
scream
have to.
yoga. They have scream
What?
yoga. Yes. And you
Wow,
just
of course.
yell in downward dog.
Of course. It's funny they have to like call it scream yoga for you to be allowed to make sounds.
Yeah.
There's one place yoga to the people, which is offered like pay what you can yoga all over the world. I forget the name of the guy. He started power yoga in LA, but it's really cool because he brought a really accessible form to a lot of people for next to nothing. And like he would always say like at this point, take a deep breath in and ha, and everyone in there, like there's a lot of artists and actors and young people in the space, but they were all like ha, because you could just like everyone was like, thank God we can finally release some
Yeah,
sound, you
totally.
know. You give them permission, and then I would teach all these other classes in like corporate environments and things, and try to get people to make sound, and even like an audible, because I'm a yoga teacher too, but even an audible exhale, and it's like some people can't, they're so shut down. And so any connection to your voice, I think, is so important.
Mhm.
Mm.
And we've barely talked about money or sex. um
Episode 2.
yeah, it might have to be continued. um this is like really, really, really great tools, I think, for everyone, especially. So John, do you have any questions for us here?
I was just gonna see if we answered Ryan Atlas's question. Um, yeah, do you hold space if it's being directed at you as an attack? And one of the guests on here that I'm looking at is Loretta, and she's a yoga teacher in Houston, and she taught me that when we breathe a lot slower on our exhales, we actually reversing that parasympathetic nervous system
Mm.
from the sympathetic, like fight, flight, fright,
Mm-hmm.
like being angry and fighting. If we can
Mm-hmm.
breathe slower, reverse that, and we can move into a more healing state.
Yeah,
So,
I
so
use that 2 in, 4 out. I count, or 2 counts in and
yeah, so
four
for
counts
Ryan,
out.
if you're feeling attacked, try breathing a little slower, and then um, I think whenever two people are in a situation where there seems to be like an attack situation, if one person can transmute that energy, then it you don't add fuel to the fire. And then
Yeah,
you could say something like what your wife is saying, where, hey, if we continue like fighting like this, it's gonna escalate, and I don't want to say anything. And then that's where you can take a break, beat on your chest, you know,
Shake
punch
it
a
out.
pillow, shake it out, do the Taylor Swift thing, Um,
And if you
so
need to
yeah,
yell, like turn around and yell, like rather than yelling in your partner's face, that you could, because it's showing control and responsibility inside of a conversation to turn, yell, and then come back. Like I've even done that before, and then I start laughing, and then suddenly like diffuse the whole thing. I was like, oh, I was just like needed to yell, you know? It's
yeah.
not personal, but to be able to have these conversations, and like if you have a relationship, you know, you could add, whoa, this would be a crazy first date question. Like, how do you deal with anger
Oh,
when you're really upset?
I asked that on first dates.
Hell yeah, you do. That's
I'm
amazing.
like, who are you when you're angry?
Tell us some of the responses, because I'm, you know, this is a great thing because most of, so one other quick thing I'll say in psychology too, and most in dating relationships and the work I've done with couples too, so many things they learn that relationships don't work because in the first 3 months you're only showing a certain part of yourself. There's a mask, so you're not actually showing all your true colors. You're showing what you think is most presentable to people.
Mhm.
So when they get something else, of course they're upset and confused, and then you're upset because you get validated that, you know, your true self isn't right or whatever, you know. And so I love that you're asking this question right off the bat, because actually, if you're real with people, it's so much sexier, and it brings like, you know, I think that's something I've learned from women. If you know, that on this show too, like if you can just speak your truth and say like, you know, actually, sometimes I do have trouble with. So I'm curious what the responses you've had are that stood out to you.
I've gotten a lot of like, oh, you don't want to see me when I'm angry. That's usually like the most common one. I've also gotten guys that are like really scared by that question or freaked out that I'm asking that. Um, like they kind of think like when I've gotten feedback that like I must like anger or I must like arguing that asking that question.
Wow, that says a
Um,
lot about that
yeah,
person.
that's true. Um, yeah, I haven't gotten like some real honest, impressive answers. But I also haven't been dating that much recently. But it is a good first date question.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, wow, that's great advice right there. So when someone has said to you, you don't want to see me when I'm angry, are you
That's
like,
very
okay,
common.
good night, see you later? Or what, like, how do you respond?
I mean, I do like seeing people when they're angry because I feel like it
Mm,
shows like their realist and almost like their pain too, you know, like
mm,
where they need more love. And like
wow.
I really
Yeah,
see like a lot of inner child and anger.
Mm,
and what they say that like, oh, you don't want to see me when I'm angry. Maybe they're acting out and like being a crazy jumping tantrum thing, but that could be a very healthy way for them to express it. So
Yeah, or maybe they're avoidant and they run away.
yeah.
yeah.
Nobody does see them when they're angry. Who
Mm.
knows?
Mm. I
Yeah.
love that about you, Natalie. That's really special. If someone had said to me, like, I would love to see you when you're angry, I'd be like, can we get married?
Guys are like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that you can even, you know, that's maybe that's the greatest gift you could give those guys of having gotten that question that challenges them.
Mhm.
Ruth mentioned something here too that I think is important that I notice, you know, in the South even more than New York is like she said, if we speak our truth, we're told we are nuts and we're not acting like a lady, so to speak. Um, and that's something that's like an old, you know, Southern thing, and a lot of places too,
Mhm.
right? That if we're speaking our truth, expressing. So what do you say to that, Natalie?
I honestly feel like when people call you crazy, it's because they like are genuinely uncomfortable by your emotions and they don't know how to hold it. And
Mm,
it isn't a reflection of you or your emotions unless you're like literally like throwing shit and like spray painting the walls and like slashing tires. But you know what I mean, like if you're literally just speaking your truth, whether that comes in the form of crying or even like your voice maybe raises a little bit. um, I think, you know, our society is very uncomfortable with anything other than that, like flatline and of course happiness, but like that's it. I can't tell you how many times I've been called crazy and how many times I've been misunderstood in my life and how many times I probably don't make sense to other people, but you just have to keep rolling with it and honoring your truth, because that is way more important than people pleasing, or you're really just living a lie if you're not honoring your truth.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what's more painful to live with? I always tell people you can stick with that lie if you want to. Like it served you this long, but if do you want to, honor your truth instead? Would you like that? Because then I can help you. But that's something that we've is scary to do, but I think it's a practice as well, right? Like it's a muscle. If you can practice saying, if someone says you're not being a lady or you feel like you're not received well, you can say it, right? Like, well, this is what a real woman looks like. So get used
Absolutely.
to it,
And
you know?
even what even is a real lady, like
Right.
we're
It's all
speaking
made up.
to like the goddess energy, like the goddess energies can create, but it can also destroy. So, I mean, I definitely lived in my destroying energy for quite some time, but looking back, I held so much shame for that. And I actually honor the fuck out of that version of me, because she was living it, she was living her life, and she got shamed so much just thinking about my modeling career and me, putting my foot down, looking crazy with agents and stuff, and literally getting
Mm,
laughed at in my face. And yeah, just that goddess energy is fucking powerful, and you just got to
mm,
honor it,
mm.
especially if it's coming from your raw truth.
Mm.
Yes. If it's scaring someone, it's probably because of the power, right?
Mhm.
Like I think most men are terrified of women, and they should be because it's like you are so powerful, and it's okay. Like that's a good thing because like men and all people come from the female body, right? And so that is the creator and destroyer. So if we can learn to respect that and honor all parts of it and hold
Mhm.
space for it and allow it to be powerful, like that's why I say like how can we, I'll ask my wife like how can I support you in your personal journey more. Like she didn't really think she could sing when we met, and
Aw.
now like 8.5 years later she's the lead singer in my band, and she just made her first solo album and music video at age 39, and she's like killing it,
Aw.
and it's like really awesome. And that was scary to me, for her to go solo out of our band and inside of our life, and we're trying to like settle down and all that stuff, but it was like clear that if I don't support her, then she like that dream, then she's not happy, and that causes toxicity for both of us. So even if it scares me, the best thing I can do is continue to let go and say, how can I be of service?
Mhm.
Um, because I think a lot of us are so afraid of. I'll speak for myself of like there's you want to hold on to things so you know what you can count on, right? But that's that illusion of control. And if we can let go, there's actually a lot more love and space and freedom available than if we walk around scared trying to like control our partners all the time. So I love, again, Natalie, you could say like, what do you like when you're angry? I'd love to see that. And that's like a really beautiful way to hold space for someone, that you can let them know that they're safe when they're angry. And that people don't know what to do with that. Like that's it's wild, feedback of says a lot about our society, that
Mhm.
men are like, what do I do with that? Rather than
Totally.
thank you. Oh my God, where have you been all my life or
Yeah,
whatever.
Mm.
totally.
We are approaching that noon o'clock. So, how do you want to close it, Ben?
Well, I would say if you're listening, let us know your biggest takeaway from today's conversation. Just type in like one sentence or one word that you're going to take away with you today. Whether you're on Facebook or Instagram, and that if this resonated with you, to please share it. Please tag people you know and love, as that helps send more positive messages out into the social media algorithms and all the other toxic crap that's out there, and just to like spread this message of love. And if something spoke to you today and you feel called to reach out um, to Natalie or to one of us, please do. Like, we are here to support you on this. With the last thing you need to be is silent with us, especially this conversation of anger. If you need tools or you're struggling in your relationship with yourself or another person, like this is, you're here, you're in the right place. And so I just want to say thank you for watching and for joining us and for all your comments. And Natalie, thank you so much for sharing yourself so generously and opening up and having this conversation. We'll definitely have to have you back to talk more.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie.
Comments. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I love talking to men. I've only done lives with men only like one other time, so this was a lot of fun.
Oh, hell yeah. We love doing them with women. We don't have enough women, not nearly as many as we would like to have on here. So we'd love to have you back. And any recommendations of other powerful women in your space that you think would be a great addition to this conversation. And I just want to say a couple things. Some of the people that are dropping in are just saying, like, the question to ask, how can I support you when you're angry? Just listening is awesome. That to just listen, don't try to fix. The men are loving that. Women saying that's okay to be angry. And I'm not sure if this is a takeaway, but we've covered anger before, and it's such a major topic today, too. It seems like there's a hunger for understanding anger. Yeah, I think there is. There's a lot of I think in this pandemic, we've gotten space to see our feelings, and there's a lot of anger coming out, which is really good because people are realizing their boundaries have been crossed and they don't have to put up with things as they are anymore. So I think this anger can really fuel us. And Ryan said the space I'm able to hold for myself and the others has expanded with the information you all gave here. So,
and I just want to add, like, whenever I was doing my Reiki training, my teacher told me that anger, like holy anger, is actually really powerful. And it's the emotion of transmutation and the emotion of like change. But especially if you allow yourself to process it and allow yourself to move through it, like even with like physically, like moving through it and be in it and in a healthy way, a lot can shift. Like I have definitely used anger to catapult my life. So, it's not always a negative thing.
Hell yeah.
It's how we direct it and transmute it is so powerful. Wow. So thank you everyone for being on the live with us today. Definitely bringing back Natalie to actually cover the topics.
Yeah, we could change it.
We'll have to do a round 2 for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. This is so fun.
Thank you all so much. Happy Monday. Spread the love, spread the anger in a healthy way. Go own it. Go yell. Go yell somewhere.
Go yell somewhere.
Like a crazy person.
Yes. I'm going to do that.
A little bit.
I'm going to go shake out right after this.
Yeah. Let's shake it out, tap it out.
Yeah.
Go love yourself.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a beautiful day.
You too.